Okay, so welcome back to yet another episode of Behind the Lines. Today we have the honor of being joined by JC. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, I'm JC or Noah or whatever. I developed LRA, and I have like two tracks. I'm doing all right.
Hey, you did indeed. So, if we get to the first things first, how did you get into Line Rider?
Oh, so way back in the day, everyone was playing like Flash games. I was playing Flash games, like maxedgames.com or something like that, addicting games, whatever. And then I just encountered this like little shitty Flash game called Jeep Flyer. It was one of those like really old mods of Line Rider,
I think I might have
and
played that actually.
yeah, that was my first introduction to Line Rider. And I just had a whole lot of fun with that. And then I don't know how, but I saw a Tech Dog video and was like, "Hey, this is really cool," and joined the forum. And then I was no good at the game, but so I actually only had like 6 tracks and like however long I was a community member on I Read the Lines, but I talked a lot. I talked a lot. I made a lot of friends, or kind of. Um, I miss the shout box. The shout box was awesome, but
What was the shout box?
it was like forum, normal forum, and then at the bottom of the page, it would be just like a live chat.
Ah, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
and that was fun. Um, but yeah, I played with my friend at the time, and like I got way more into it than they did. That was part of it.
Yeah, you could say that. You started off playing, now you're developing.
Yeah, and the story behind that basically is, do you want me to get into that now?
Sure, yeah. So JC is actually the developer of one of the probably the two most popular used versions of Line Rider, one being Conan's .com, and then we have Line Rider Advanced. So yeah, get into the history of Line Rider Advanced.
So I quit I Read the Lines about, I don't know when, but before it got hacked, which is why it's no longer available. And just kind of moved on with my life. And like I'd always been like really interested in like developing games or whatever. Like at that age, I tried using like Game Maker and drag and drop programming because I was like a little kid, and I couldn't do it. And so I moved on, got into other stuff, learned to program for real because I learned how to reverse engineer hacking and stuff. That was my thing. And then I just saw like an old YouTube video of mine, and I was like, I wonder how those guys are doing. And then I saw all the same faces. Like, there's so many people that I knew from like 5 years ago or more, who knows. Um, Way more apparently, seeing that it's 2018. So I was like, what the heck are they still doing? And then I played like Kevin's Evans version, and I was like, you'd think it would suck less.
No,
Like, no offense to him, he was doing great with what he was given. He was modding the game, but I was like, really? And at the time I had no projects going on, and I was like, this has always been kind of like something that I wanted to approach, and so I was like, I can do this, and I can help these guys. I can make the people who've survived this long's lives easier. I can improve the experience, and that was what I set out to do. And like having knowledge in reverse engineering, um, like plenty of people have worked on their own clones or whatever, without having any experience in that. But that helped me a lot. I was able to like for figuring out the physics and stuff because it had never been truly ported at the time. The physics had always been at least some level of wrong.
oh, I see. So what do you mean by ported for those of us who aren't super knowledgeable?
I rewrote the entire source code of LineRider, just from scratch, but had to sustain the same physics engine.
I see. So
So,
previously, when that had been done, it wasn't like stable, or there were a lot of bugs.
well, yes, but primarily it wasn't the exact same physics. It would not
Ah,
load an
okay,
SOL file, or if it could load an SOL file, it wouldn't work.
right.
The physics just weren't ported properly, and so there were lots of theories at the time as to why that wouldn't work. Conundrummer and Matthew Henry, Minor 18, however you want to pronounce his name. I go with Matthew Henry, so I can't get it wrong. They both were convinced, yeah, it's impossible because of something related to the floating point logic. Basically, the square root function wouldn't return the same value exactly.
Okay.
That was their theory, but that turned out to be wrong. So I ended up just working on it, and man, getting the physics to work, that was fun. That was a particular kind of frustrating, because it's just like, why isn't this working? And then every once in a while, after like my first alpha release, you get someone who says, "Hey, my track isn't working," and I'd be like, "Oh God." But I worked really hard on the release of the alpha for LineRider, and I tried to make sure that no one would even know it existed. There's a lot going on in my background. I worked hard to make sure that no one knew it existed really until it came out. I didn't, because there was just this graveyard in the version development section of We Ride the Lines. Just a graveyard of people trying to attempt my project.
All right.
And it was projects that went somewhat well and then stopped. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And I'm not getting anyone's hopes up. I'm not making someone take a look and be like, this will never work. I want to come in and say, hey, boom.
Yeah, I think you kind of achieved that really. Because I mean, I guess I don't know what the exact split is, at least in the community, of who uses LRA or LRJS or both. But both are as worthwhile as each other. I mean, it seems to me that people tend to use LRA for more of the quirk side of LineRider, because it's more advantageous to making quirk. Is that correct?
It's good for quirk users, but it's not meant for quirk. And I see a lot of users from all sorts of different kinds of track making.
Sure.
And at least among the community. So .com and LRJS have a much wider user base than I do. However, we never see them.
Yeah.
We never see those users. I think that a lot of that is that they don't come back in the next week. They're like, hey, this is cool. And they mess around with it. And they're done. So by the time they end up in the Discord and the community, they're like, I feel like I can make more with this. At least that's how I feel. That's what I'm going for.
So you would say LineRider Advanced has you'd say like more features than LRJS does, or
It absolutely has more features.
okay.
It has way more features than .com, of course. LRJS isn't, as far as I know, it's not properly maintained. Like, it's not something that Conundrummer is planning on continuing to work on. Which means, like, there's this bug in Firefox where the rider's just black. The whole sprite's black.
And .com is LRJS, or they are the same thing?
LRJS is a different version of LineWriter that was made by Conundrummer. It predates LineWriter.com. LRJS was a lot more targeted at the advanced users than .com is. LineWriter.com mostly acts as a basic editor. And it does a really good job at it. If you look at its user interface, beautiful.
Yep, it's very friendly. I mean, I don't really use it that much myself, which is why I'm asking so many questions that maybe I should have already known the answer to, but I don't know. I started with LRA right off the bat, so most of my reasons for continuing to not test the other version are purely out of laziness. But yeah, so where would you see LRA going in the future, would you say?
It's either going to eventually hit maturity and have the majority of features that I want it to have, that people want it to have. And in this timeline, in that timeline, any other features or whatever would be mods. There's already like a couple of people that have just been taking to modding it because the project's open source, which means anyone can modify the source in however they want and do whatever, which is really cool. Because people have been doing fun stuff with it, and the more people we get, the more interested they'll be in that sort of stuff. And it's cool that that's kind of gotten off the ground already, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the goal in that timeline, the goal would be to make LineWriter Advanced hit feature maturity. So it's got like the features it needs, it's got like the documentation it needs, and the stability.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned the features. If we get a bit more specific about that, what kind of features are you hoping to implement in the future?
Well, I've got, as you probably know, but as most people may not, there's like track level onion skinning in place that's being developed for like animation for like the track at the track level. So like you go frame by frame and like you can see the previous frame and like animate over that, kind of like how it would be in Flash or whatever. It's hard to relate it to like layman's terms, but like here, like paper that when you draw on it, you draw through it.
It's like having tracing paper and putting it over another
Yes,
layer of
tracing paper. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, tracing paper.
Yep.
So stuff, something like that, or like there's a feature change that needs to be taken place. That's basically currently we have like line triggers. So if the rider rides over a line, it like triggers a zoom event. Pretty much is all it does right now. One thing that would be nice would be like adding different things that can be triggered, like night mode or gravity.
Yeah, or color playback, whatever. I know one feature Ravid was telling me about in the behind the lines we did with him is that I think he has a version of .com that actually gives you the ability to rotate groups of shapes, like for animating purposes. Is that something we might eventually see in LRA as well?
That is currently what I'm working on. Like, I have been for a couple of days now.
Yeah.
So scale and rotate, just like in an image editor.
Sure.
And just implementing it like that, and that's also planned for really the next release.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you feel about the idea of having these two versions that are? I don't know if we could really say they're like competing with each other, but like I think they're having these, like multiple developers working on multiple versions certainly kind of pushes the evolution of features at a more rapid rate. What do you think about that?
I think it sucks, and I think it pushes me away from wanting to develop.
So
As
that
soon as Line
pressure is
Rider
too
Advance came
much.
out, it felt like Conundrummer had like this instant burst of like motivation to work on his version, and I was like, God damn it, why did I do this? If someone else was going to fix Line Rider, why didn't they do it before I invested all my time? So, that said, as much as it sucks for me, it doesn't really suck for the user.
Yep,
It
we're getting all these new features.
we get new features, and like they get refined between each version. One version does it one way, and I don't know how much Conundrum looks at my version. I feel like he doesn't at all. But I know that I look at his version, and I'm thinking, what can I do to this to refine it to be better? Because most of the time, if there's a feature release on linerider.com, it's something that I was already working on, but having that direct reference improves my development path that much more, because it's like, this is one way to do this. That's instantly a visualization of it.
Yeah, totally. So, go on.
So all in all, I think that having those two versions, even labeling it Compete, is better for people, especially since, honestly, it sucks that Line Rider Advanced doesn't run in the browser, and there's really not much I can do about that. And so that means that if you want to introduce people to Line Rider, either you tell them to download it.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Or you tell them to play the Flash version. That's not good.
And yeah, obviously having a website is much more accessible for stumbling across than your GitHub is. Because I think the only place that's publicly available is what the Reddit, the Discord, and We Ride the Lines probably.
Yeah. That's the only places it's linked to. I have like a website I'm working on or whatever, just to like link to it more and stuff. But really that's about it.
Sure.
And there's no real like promotion of it besides just the people who swear by it in the Discord, which
those diehard
to everyone
fans.
who swears by it in the Discord, for new people, I love you.
Yeah, we all have our inherent biases towards whatever we love, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think we probably covered LRA fairly extensively at this point. Should we get back to track making?
Yeah, sure.
So I guess the second question I would have asked is, do you have any, when it comes to your tracks, do you have any inspirations from like other track makers, or is it just come from yourself?
Okay, so when I started making tracks, like again, when I came back to LRA, I liked Lucking's Cat Groove a lot. I liked that track specifically a lot.
I remember that.
And that kind of inspired me for like one of my tracks that I called it Dirt or something like that, because I just made it while I was like testing the alpha version of Line Rider Advance. And then like as far as inspiration was concerned, I really didn't have any, and especially for like my track Nighttime Thoughts, which is just like it's a little heavy.
Yep, it is.
For that track, I had no inspiration.
Really?
I just kind of started that track with the words at the end of the track in mind, and I was like, how do I make this a track?
So the theme of that was then suicide?
Yeah. Or Not even necessarily suicide, thoughts of suicide, really.
So, do you mind elaborating on that? Because that seems to be a theme with your tracks.
Sure. I am a very depressed kind of guy. I go through a lot of that sort of stuff. I've just had a lot of trouble. Motivation with Line Rider came and went as like it felt like I was just being one upped by another developer and stuff, and like that just kind of hit me where it hurt. But like mostly that was just on my end. Like it wasn't like, oh wow, this guy's making me want to kill myself or anything like that. No, it wasn't like that. It was just like, you know, not in a good place.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's more how the pressure of the competition kind of thing and how you dealt with it. Would you say?
it wasn't the pressure of the competition. It was just like I don't want to be competing.
Yeah. But you're kind of
I
forced
never made
into it.
this to be like a competition. I really would have been happy not making it if I knew someone else was going to do the project.
Yeah. Fair enough. So, yeah, go
Yeah.
on.
So basically, when I approached creating Blind Rider Advance, just briefly about that, the whole concept was the Blind Rider should be an expression of art. That was how I felt about it. That's still how I feel about it. I feel like Line Rider is art. And so when I made Nighttime Thoughts, I was thinking, how can I make this an expression of who I am? And that was what came out.
Okay. So, what would you say? So, would you consider yourself, and if you consider yourself a line writer artist, so to speak, what would you say your goal is with line writer in general when it comes to making a track?
Oh God. I want to show the world how sad I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really it. I think that it's like that with music for me, and it's like that with Line Rider. I I don't feel much for like trick expression. Like I felt really good when the 10-point cannon when I figured that out, because it felt like I could like express a whole lot more with that. But tricks are stale to me. Expression, like whatever the goal was of the track, usually speaks a lot more to me in any given release. So I try to make tracks that when I look back, I'm like, damn, it's pretty good. And the thing is, haven't put out a track in a while because it's hard to reach that.
Yeah, and you're pretty dedicated to LRA to the point of damn near crippling your hands, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. At one point, I think it might have been 0.3 RC was the latest release, and that wasn't okay. For anyone who doesn't know, 0.3 RC was a disaster, a buggy disaster. I swear that it will make your computer spontaneously combust. Do not use 0.3 RC.
It always seems to be that like loads of people end up using that version for some reason. Like I used it for so long, and I think I made mountains with 0.3 RC, and a scenery track, which was even harder to make with that.
It had a lot of bugs, and way more than any like, oh, there's someone else developing another version or whatever could weigh on me. The fact that that version was the latest version that people were using faithfully and it sucked hurt me.
Mm.
So I got into this point where I would work 12 to 16 hours a day, every day, 7 days, for like a month too. And I was definitely a month where that was like that way for every goddamn day. And the rest of days leading up to whatever I released at the time, were spent at high rates, just not nearly as consistently, because I felt like I was making progress eventually.
Yeah, that's pretty insane levels of
But
dedication.
that ended up killing my hands. They hurt a lot when I type, which is why development has slowed down and such.
Yeah, so all of us, you know, are always hungry for new updates, always clamoring for new features. Think of your developer's hands, people.
Yeah,
He's
yeah. Please think of my hands.
let's start a GoFundMe to get JC a new pair of hands.
Yes, yes. Please.
Okay, so you mentioned obviously that your tracks are kind of like an extension of yourself and your feelings. Would you say that they're just for you, or do you also make them for other people, just to like to share the feeling, or to connect, or to help other people?
Nighttime Thoughts was for me.
Yeah,
I don't. I released that because I wanted to, but if no one liked it, that's fine. Because I made that for me. Now, the track that I'm working on, it's got a lot of fancy animation in it. It's not even that fancy. It feels fancy. It's just like text animation so far, really. Like uh, whatever. Typography? No, that's not typography. Whatever.
calligraphy.
Anyway,
I don't even know.
no, it's like, when you see those videos that have like that are edited really heavily, but it's just like text, like lyrics for a video or something like that. God, forget it, forget it. Anyway, it's just a lot of that so far. And part of that is I want people to be like, wow, there was a lot put into this. The other part is like, I just want to put out the message that's in the song. But yeah, that's one that I want to share because I feel like more people will get that.
Awesome. So, how do you feel about track making today? About the state of Line Rider?
How do I feel about track making today? It's hard. It's surprisingly hard for how much easier the tools have gotten, and that's because like tracks now have higher expectations, or at least to me. If you do something that would have like we refer to it back in the day as like killing the flow. If you do something like that, that is just like that's a deadly sin right there. You do not do that.
Yeah, syncing, I guess, which is what you're referring to, the flow of the music and how that integrates with the track. Is that what you mean?
Not even like where if you just like travel along a curve and then go back down, like just or like travel along the curve, go up and then back down, like with no intention whatsoever. It's just like, or another example is just like sitting still for like 10 seconds for no reason. There's no message, there's no syncing, there's nothing like that. Just do it.
Yeah, well, to be honest, with that particular example, if it was just doing that for like 10 seconds, I can see why that might be annoying to like, because I guess if you have to, I guess because of what Line Rider kind of is nowadays, where everything is kind of so much geared towards, sharing a track on YouTube or whatever. If you're like sharing like something that you want someone to watch, and you have like a part that's like not so interesting, then like it's obviously going to affect your watch time. But would you say then that everything's kind of, from your perspective, almost too geared towards being overly intentional or thematic?
Nope.
Nope.
I think it's supposed to be art to me. I think that if people want to just like toy around with it, that's cool. Go for it. You're probably not going to make tracks that you want like people really to watch. Um, that sounds a little more controversial than I was trying to say. But like
I think,
I
yeah.
imagine like my parents or my girlfriend or whatever, they just like open it up, they draw a few lines, they're like, haha, that's fun, and then they maybe show a friend or something like that, but then they're done. And so like in that way, intentionality isn't important. But for the people who do want to make like a product, something for people to watch, the fact that it's geared towards such intentionality is a good thing to me.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes tracks stand out as individual pieces, which is something I guess in quite a lot of the other interviews I've gotten into is people often remark that certain things can become stale, like no matter what it is, like whether it's an over reliance on syncing or an over reliance on some other technique like manual flat slide, whatever. It's more like how you package it that kind of makes a track really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. It's all about the packaging.
Hmm. So, if you have like a line writer philosophy, let's say, what would you describe it as?
A line writer philosophy. Um, my line writer philosophy is deleting things that I think are shit. I I'm not nearly as like into that philosophy as I think Toivo. That man is so good. He has a 20-minute video of unfinished tracks, like 2 tracks that are actually released, and the unfinished tracks are all
Unbelievable.
unbelievable. And
Yeah.
it's like, he didn't finish this, and he was like, I wasn't satisfied with this part of it, and
Yeah.
like that's it.
You
And
realize he made like he told me because I interviewed him the other day actually. He told me he spent 18 months, I think, working on that unreleased part of Mountain King.
yeah,
Like
that
five.
was insane. That was insane. And I was like, please release this. No one, so few people are going to watch your 20-minute video of uncategorized
Mm.
tracks.
And it's like if
It's just not something that you can expect of like everyone.
yeah, and it's like if you have this masterpiece version of Mountain King, I'd be interested to see how that does view wise compared to our current heavyweight champion, uh, the
Yeah.
8 million view Mountain King that we have by Doodle Chaos. But yeah, I mean that's definitely an example of being a perfectionist. Is
Yeah.
Toivo.
I'm not nearly there. Is kind of my point. I'm not nearly there for perfectionism, but I do have a habit of being like, well, that took way too long to have to delete, but okay.
So you're firmly not in the camp of don't delete your tracks.
Oh, I just mean like parts of tracks, really.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Um, I I've unlisted all of my old tracks from like 2009 or whatever, 2007,
No.
because I just don't want to subject the world to that. I'm sorry, world, for my crimes.
Crimes against Line Rider.
Yes. And so I'd rather like put on my channel something that represents me more because like I was 10 or whatever when I made them.
Fair enough. So, where do you see Line Rider going?
I think the community is like growing and shrinking in like waves. And I think what's going to determine the outcome of all of that is going to be Conundrummer. What he decides to do with either an app release or desktop release or both will have significant effects on any community that exists here. I think that when like an app is released, it'll be fun and it'll introduce a lot of people, but I think that what it'll do to the community will be surprisingly negative. I think that it may cause the community to sort of break up because we're reliant on track releases to kind of stay afloat, and a mobile release would possibly have a feature for like exporting tracks or whatever, or like sharing them like in app or whatever.
I'm sure it would. I mean, even the mobile desktop kind of mobile version of .com, you can do that, I think. So,
well, I was thinking like at a hosted on .com level, like share tracks area. It's like, because like the big problem with LineRider.com
like
tracks is no one releases them. No one ever releases them like on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that that's detrimental to like the kind of community we've got here, because we are really dependent on YouTube releases.
Yeah. So you're kind of talking about like an in-app kind of almost featured tracks kind of page.
Yeah. And when that happens, if that happens, I think that will damage the community and it may die.
There's definitely a potential for something like that to affect the community. I guess it depends how it's integrated. Like if it's purely only accessible from an app, then I can kind of see your concerns. If it's also like web accessible, it may not be as much of an impact as you might think. But as you say, I guess it depends how something like that would pan out. Certainly, a mobile app in and of itself, I can see becoming very popular, assuming it's because I can see if you have like big thumbs and fingers like me, it's kind of like an effort to make stuff on a phone. But
it is for most people, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that the tracks that turn out from mobile versions will turn out to be very good.
But it would be you can see like people would be using that on commutes on trains and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can see on their way to work, like that's a kind of definitely a commuter's toy, I would see it as.
Right, exactly. And like, I could be very wrong about this whole opinion, so like that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I hope that it doesn't fracture and die, because I'm pretty sure Conundrummer is going to put out a mobile version. So I really hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be sure to get more
and it's
in depth
a radical perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I can ask Conan more about this when I do get to interview him. But yeah, so in lieu of that possible apocalyptic ending for Line Rider, where would you hope to see Line Rider go?
Well, I would hope. Okay, I know the Conundrummer has problems with the contract or whatever with inXile, who owns the copyright and trademark for Line Rider.
Yeah.
And apparently a patent.
Apparently it's not that because
it's hard to enforce patents for like games in general. But just they have like legal control over it is basically what I'm saying, and they have legal control over the project that Conundrum is working on. They supervise it. So I think that he's kind of screwed by them in what he is able to do with it. And I'm kind of screwed by them with being able to popularize my version or ask for any kind of money for this project, because it's taken me like 3-4 years, I don't know, to develop of like hard work, and the stuff isn't free
Yeah.
for me. So um, where I hope it goes is that Line Rider can become a category of games. Like, so Line Rider Advanced becomes something else with a different name, that's about drawing lines and writing on them, but it's not Line Rider. So people can do cool stuff with it. It's still the same kind of thing, but because it's not Line Rider, the freedom for development and like growth, I think, I hope, would change. And I think that would be good for Conundrummer as well, because then he could do things more freely. Because as far as I understand, I could be wrong about this as well. As far as I understand, the contract at the very least inhibits development.
I think it does to a certain extent. I think Ollie actually posted some findings of his in the Line Rider Discord, which to any of those of you watching, you should all go join. It's a great thing. um, he was posting that the patents and the legal authority they have is actually quite limited, and it wouldn't be that difficult to circumvent.
Well, that's for the patents. The trademark is kind of,
The trademark is the name, right? Only the name, I think.
yeah, the name. And for Conundrummer, he works under them, like not under them. He works with their supervision. No version of LineRider.com goes out without them approving it.
Right.
So he has to follow their rules.
Mm.
I don't as much. I've gotten away with just calling mine Line Rider Advanced, but I don't know how much trouble I could get in for that.
Probably none, because they don't care at this point.
It's because they don't care. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, totally.
But if I cannot make a mobile version.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I am not able to.
Yeah.
Because in exile. So if I were to do that, if I were to make a mobile version, I'd have to do it under a different name and probably make a few changes to what it is, and then it wouldn't be Line Rider as people understand it, and that would be bad for people. But
yeah,
that's why I hope that we can make Line Rider a category instead of a game. Like I don't think this is really going to happen, but but that is the best case scenario for me.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting as a paradigm kind of shift there. If you could imagine what would happen to the value of tracks if you have a whole bunch of other slightly different versions that people use, and how that would kind of influence track making.
Well, there are already a bunch of other slightly different versions that people use.
Which ones do you mean, like apart from the three popular ones we have at the moment?
It's just those.
Yeah. Okay. So the last question I normally ask is, what would you say to a new person, maybe who's just joined the community, or maybe who's just interested in Line Rider, who might be watching this video?
Try Line Rider Advanced. Try LineRider.com. Try LineRider.js. Whichever works for you, use it. Version choice is like a big deal, and I personally feel confident in my version, but I would hate for anyone new to get stuck on my version who would enjoy LineRider.com more. Conundrummer is much more of a designer than I am. And so things are way more approachable on that front. That's just the reality of it. So also like ask questions in the Line Rider Discord. Seriously, everyone does it, and you always get answers.
Yep. Yeah, we're always here to help, so don't be afraid. We will help you, and we are very nice and friendly.
Oh, and your track sucks. It's okay. Your track sucks, but it's okay because you tried, and if you continue to try, it won't suck, and we will help you if you want it.
Yeah, like if you know, like doing a track in a certain way appeals to you and you do feel the need to want to improve on, you know, certain aspects of your line rider repertoire, shall we say, whether that be in technique or just in, you know, paying attention to, you know, the intent of a track or whatever it is. Again, you know, like we're all here. We all start from somewhere. I mean, JC's chosen to abolish all memory of his initial attempts at track making. I still have my first release track up on my channel, so you can go and
It was probably more recent though.
yeah, it was only like last year, so not like
Yeah,
10
mine
years
was
ago.
like 2007.
I think I was making tracks then, like in high school, but like I didn't even know how to even make videos. I was just doing whatever. So
Unregistered Hypercam too.
yeah, even that. So yeah, that's the last question I tend to normally ask in these interviews. So unless you have anything else to say, I think we'll probably wrap up there.
No, I think that's it.
Okay, awesome. So thanks for joining us on this yet another episode of Behind the Lines with JC Noah, the developer of LRA and All Round G. So yeah, this is us signing out. Leave your love and hate down below, and yeah, peace, y'all.